Welcome everyone. This is Amol Chaphekar and today is the third session that we are going to have. First two sessions were on resume building, personality development and skill development. Today we are going to talk about group discussions, telephonic round of interviews and how to capture a video resume. Let's go step by step into what our topic is today. Group discussion, I do not mean by a discussion which is to be taken care for your interviews or in specific, or to be taken care for any of the IITs to be cracked in. A group discussion can be anywhere. It can be right from maybe a company level interview when they come for a campus placement or something, or it could be a team meeting where you are having a discussion for a particular project can be also considered as a group discussion. We are talking about meetings with client and client representatives where you're supposed to discuss something with the clients, and there are a couple of team members from the client side, couple of team members from your side, your boss is also sitting with you. So this is a scenario because I've been told again and again that there is a mix of students, those who are already working and those who are now pursuing education and would be working in future. So I'll try to cover all these three scenarios where we are talking about interview related group discussion, we are talking about team meeting related group discussions, or it could be a client representative meeting or a networking meeting where you have to put up your point and you have to stand out. Let's go step by step. Now, when I mean you are entering a group discussion, that does not mean the discussion starts when you're already seated. What I mean is the discussion or the preparation for it already starts before the meeting, maybe 10-15 minutes in advance, where people are coming. Now, when you're formally seated, you're ready and you are supposed to speak out. But before that, what happens? There are certain do's that you should do always before you enter a group discussion or you are planning to enter a group discussion. Let's see point number one. You have to be there at the site for at least 10 to 15 minutes, if not earlier, so that you get to know about the site. So you have to reach the site well in advance. There could be traffic jams, there could be scenarios that you may not reach in time, and you don't want to overshoot it to a scenario that everybody's already sitting and you're entering as a latecomer over there. So two positive points of it is go in advance so that you can do further things in there. Now, what I mean going in advance? Now, when you go in advance, you get to adjust to the environment. You get to know where the meeting room is, or you get to know which way is the water dispenser kept around and so on. So there are multiple advantages of going in advance. Second and major advantage, all those colleagues or all those people who are going to be joining you for that particular meeting, you can greet them and you can interact with them. Interacting with them before a group discussion will always help. Why it will help is because you get to understand their personality, their views, and that personality and views is what you can utilize it during your group discussion. So you are not judging or guessing or trying to understand them in the meeting. You have prima facie talked to them, you have understood their views. If the topic is already known to you, if you're going to discuss about a specific project, or if you're going to discuss about any specific idea or any specific agenda, you would know the agenda well. You would also be able to informally talk about it to people where they are more open to sharing their views. And once you've understood their views, it becomes easy for you to align or to prepare yourself what to talk. You know when you are going to be supported by which person and when you are not going to be supported by which person. So this initial dialogue, this initial communication before you actually enter a conference room or a group discussion based scenario would ideally help you. Now, there are multiple benefits of it. Let's say if you have time, you can also go through a book which is known as The Fine Art of Small Thinking. That helps you basically open the dialogue with someone. All people who are coming for that meeting or group discussion may not be known to you, but you need to open a dialogue. Now, you need to have a small talk. You cannot directly jump onto the topic or directly start discussing on a topic. They would tell you that, okay, let's discuss inside the room. So you have to make sure that you have art of small talk and you can communicate with them. It's basically gaining confidence so that they listen to you when you talk in your meeting. If you share your credentials, if let's say if you're a PhD in something, or if you are having a certain qualification which adds value, it would be more easy for you to convince them in the room, because they already know your credentials. They know whom is the word coming from. If they do not know your credentials, it would be slightly difficult for them to adjust, and you cannot really disclose your credentials directly during the meeting. So make use of this early 15 minutes to talk to them whom you are, what kind of background you have, what kind of expertise and experience you have to talk on the topic. By saying so, they would be looking forward to listen to you. You do not have to barge in to a discussion and saying, okay, I want to talk. That's not going to happen, because they know that you are someone who can talk on the topic. You are someone who is valuable in terms of contributing to the discussion. So utilize these initial 15 minutes for a good rapport building. Try to make sure that you align with themselves on maybe social topics, or maybe any other topic which is currently trending. Just make sure that you don't get too over friendly with these guys, because some people may not like and they may get offended. So make sure that you have that small talk scenario, understand them. If at all they open up with a topic of the discussion which is going to be talked inside, great. You understand their views and then you enter the room. Let's see what do we have to carry across inside. Now, last time we discussed about personality types, and today we're going to discuss something which is more aligning to it, which is your appearance. You may have an X personality, and if your appearance is not aligning to it, it may create a distortion between what you're going to talk, whom you are, and how you're dressed. Now, appearance is not only specifically meant by how you're dressing it out. You need to be aptly dressed, not overdressed or underdressed in terms of, now let's say for example, there's you're required to wear business casuals and you go in a full coat scenario. You're going to stand out over there. Now remember, in a group discussion, standing out is not important. Standing out correctly is very important. Now let's go one step ahead in this, where we're talking about 3 scenarios of your appearance. The first scenario of your appearance is the dressing. The second scenario is your body language, and third is how your movement is. Now these are 3 parameters which are going to help people understand your personality, which is your intrinsic personality. It could be expressed in these 3 ways prominently. Now when we are talking about body language, there are different body language parameters. We'll go into details about when we talk what to do, what not to do during a group discussion, but some of them are, let's say, the way you're standing, the way you're talking, maybe you're leaning around or you're too forward on the table, or maybe you are just fiddling with your pen or something, or maybe you're looking at your mobile phone every now and then. So these are different parameters which are going to define, your body language is going to define that. It was also going to define, are you interested in what the person is saying? If you are not interested in what the other person is saying, he will definitely be not interested in what you want to say or you want to contribute. So make sure that these pointers are there. It's a huge topic when you're talking about dressing, when you're talking about body language. It's a separate topic altogether. But make sure that you are correctly dressed for the event. It is not too bright. It is not too, you are not standing out. I mean, you're standing out in the right and correct way is what I mean. Let's go and see what exactly do you need to carry inside a boardroom or inside a meeting where you're going to have a group discussion. Now, what to carry? It is always good to carry at least 1 pen, 1 paper or a diary, so that you can make certain notes, because it is not that you're going to get a chance to talk on an impromptu basis. You'll have to let the other person finish, and by the time the other person finishes, it is generally a scenario that the thoughts in your mind have diluted, or you do not have exact grip on that thought. So it's always good to carry a pen and paper and make sure that you write the notes. So when you write the notes and when your chance comes, you are not missing out to that bright idea that clicked when he was talking. So make sure that you have a pen and paper. Now, why carry an extra pen and paper? Just in case somebody of your colleague is requiring that from your side, you can always offer it. It is in goodwill gesture, you can say that it can cause a certain amount of positiveness, that you're sharing something with him. When you're talking, he may ideally, if your point is correct, he may ideally contribute to it, or he may like it or support the topic. So it's not mandatory to get an extra paper or extra pen, but it's always good to carry so that you can support with someone who is not having it. Two more important things that you cannot physically carry with you, but that is knowledge and confidence. Now, many a times you would know that the topic that you're going to discuss is rather predefined by someone who is calling you for that meeting. If it is a interview kind of scenario, they would ideally give a topic then and there itself, and you have to build on top of it. But apart from that, you would naturally know why you are going and attending that group meeting or that group discussion. Now, if you do not have sufficient knowledge, you will not have sufficient power to talk about it. You will not be able to contribute effectively. So you need to prepare for that meeting. You cannot just carry your diary and your pen and just come into the meeting and say, okay, let's see what is talked about. If you are prepared for that meeting, if you are carrying sufficient knowledge of that particular project in terms of dates, numbers, facts, figures, it's going to be very useful for you when you're presenting something, because you're not presenting something very superficially, but you are having knowledge of that particular topic in terms of facts and figures. So always carry that knowledge which is going to help you in contributing to the discussion. If you have certain valid points, if you have certain prints, if you have certain data with you, feel free to carry that, because you can refer that data and based on that data you can talk. It will be always considered as a good gesture that you are prepared for a meeting. By seeing the fact that you are carrying something, a file with it which is related to the topic, also makes a difference. Whether you utilize the file or not is secondary, but it always comes in handy instead of saying that, okay, I'll send you the data, I'll send you the file, I'll send you the information. I will send you the information is future tense. You need to contribute there itself. Whatever you can contribute there is going to be helpful out. Now, confidence and overconfidence, it's slightly a tricky scenario, but you need to build and have sufficient confidence. There would be seniors in that particular discussion. There could be people who are more qualified than you, who would be more holding a higher post than you, but you need to maintain your confidence and make sure that your knowledge is supporting it. If you're confident in talking about things, people would ideally believe it. I don't mean to say that you need to talk lies and people would believe you, but your knowledge supported by your confidence would ideally give them a good piece to actually think on it and respond to. So these are four primary things that you should carry: a pen and paper, knowledge about that topic that you want to discuss on, and the fourth thing that you're going to carry is your confidence. Let's see further. Now, in a group discussion, you need to get noticed, correct? Now, you need to get noticed by your boss, or you need to get noticed by the selection committee out there. But only getting noticed is not correct. Getting noticed for wrong reasons is going to put you a problem. Now, if you're positively noticing is where you're talking, you're contributing, your body language is right, your dressing is correct, you are putting up valid points. That means you're getting positively noticed. If just for the sake of it, you're entering an argument with someone, you're questioning someone, but you do not have a base behind it, there's a likely chance that you may not get noticed positively. Being in a group discussion and not getting noticed positively is going to be as damaging as possible, where you're doing it on a good and positive side of it. So make sure that you maintain a positive attitude and you are getting noticed positively. It is not that, let's say, for example, you're walking down for a coffee break every now and then. We can understand there's a long meeting, but you cannot leave the meeting every now and then, or you can just pull up your phone and be not attentive in that scenario. So you just have to make sure that you are attentive enough and you are positively noticed. It could be addressing, it could be anything and everything that we're going to talk in future in this slide. Now, when you enter a meeting, you need to make sure that you are seeing what is around there. Now, what I mean what is around there is, let's say you may find a whiteboard over there. just to take a lead part of it, you can actually make sure that you utilize that whiteboard and start driving the meeting. Now, if you don't notice the resources around, or if you don't notice that there's a phone kept in over there, or there's a water dispenser out there, so you need to, the moment you enter that room, you need to understand what is around. Where are the light buttons kept in? You need to understand and scan the room thoroughly so that you are in charge of that particular area. If it is a regular room, a regular meeting room, great. But try to understand that if you're going into a client's place, you need to make sure that you know the room very well. Specifically, try to see if you get a whiteboard over there, because whiteboard is going to play a very important role. You can just take a marker over there. And the second point which I'm trying to say over here is try to lead the discussion. Let's say if you're a group of around 4 to 5 people, or maybe 10 people or 20 people out there, there needs to be someone who is coordinating the meeting. A meeting would ideally otherwise run down into a scenario where everybody is talking, they're beating around the bush, but nothing is coming out of that meeting. Now, there needs to be an anchor point. Now, if you can be the anchor point, definitely you are going to be positively noticed. Maybe you can just pull up the marker and say that, why don't we list down the points that we have thought about? And that puts you onto that extra edge where you have already started leading the meeting in some of the other sense. What I meant is you understood the resources in that particular room. If you find a whiteboard, pick up the marker. If you are confident enough, let's talk and ask them a permission kind of scenario that, why don't we list down the points and thoughts and then discuss on it? That's where you have already taken an edge over the other members in the room. Now, as I'm telling you again and again, this is not specifically about interview group discussion. It could be a team meeting, it could be a client meeting, or it could be any meeting where a group of people are discussing. Let's see the next point, which is you need to keep your reasoning brief. You cannot just keep on talking about it. What is going to happen is that there are around 10 to 20 people in the room. Some of them may be interested in talking. Some of them say that, okay, we are called just for the sake of it, we are attending it and we're going to leave. But there are other people who may get bored of listening to you again and again. So whenever you're talking, whenever you're making a point, be brief, precise, and after talking about that particular point, just summarize it. Because people may understand or perceive it based on their understanding, but you summarizing it is most important after you have put up your point. So you have put up your point very briefly, very precisely, and then you're summarizing it at the end of it. That's what is required. That's where the pen and paper will come into picture, where you have already made a note of what you want to talk, how you want to talk, and how you want to summarize it. Now, we're talking about supporting someone. Let's say if there's someone who's an intelligent guy out in the room and you would want to take a support or rather support him across. So he must have talked about some topic. Make a note of it and make sure that you say that as Mr. So-and-so expressed, I also support it, and you add up an extra edge on top of it. Let's say he's made the cake. You adding a cherry to it is going to be helpful because you're going to get noticed for adding that cherry. He's already talked about all the good points that are to be talked in the topic. Now you making sure that you take his cake or take his points so that you don't have to explain them again and again, and you add up your additional points on top of it. So you're cutting down your point short and you're just adding value to whatever is left out, because there is a likely chance that you may or may not get a chance to speak at the start of the meeting, and it is not again advisable to start the meeting or start talking. Let 2 or 3 people talk and then you jump onto the discussion by understanding where that particular discussion or topic is being stirred to. That will give you a better grip of the situation, that what is the feeling of the day, what is that people are feeling, are they irritated, are they unhappy, and you starting the topic, everybody is going to be either happy with what you talk or they are just going to cross you out. So just make sure that you take someone's topic which is aligned to your thought process, add what you have to add, and that way also you can actually get that noticeability of yours. Let's go to the next point. Now, as I said, you can support someone's topic. I'm also saying that you should always not contradict directly. You can take the positive points of a point that someone has expressed and tweak it in such a way that the person is not offended. At the same time, you have put up your point. So it is not good to, even if he's wrong, just make sure that there be some positivity or some points in that particular expression where you can highlight, and then you can take back to the negative side of it, polish it a little bit so that you're not offending him, putting the point correctly. And that's what is required, because that particular one group discussion, you may have an edge over that person by saying, okay, this person is wrong, he's saying everything incorrectly. That is one way of saying it. Or saying that this point is okay, but I feel I would want to add to it that so and so is there. So you need to highlight the good side of a person, even if he's talking wrong, the good part of that particular point that is expressed, and then cross out the negative side. But just immediately bombarding on him, okay, to galat bol rahe ho tum, is not the way out there. And if you're telling that someone is telling wrong things or telling which is incorrect, you need to have a substantial proof when you're talking and contradicting on that point. So this is where you can actually convert a negative dialogue with someone to a positive scenario. Now, when I see that do not contradict anyone, I do not mean that you do not have to raise your point. You need to be politely stubborn. Now, what is being politely stubborn is, you need to be polite. It could be your seniors, it could be the clients, client representatives, and they may not like you being rude. So you need to make sure that you put up that point and you are politely stubborn about it. In case it is going to a heated discussion kind of scenario, you can say that we can review this and come back to you, in case it is a team meeting. But otherwise, you can help, if you are very confident that your point is correct, you can actually hold up to your point and be politely stubborn. Just don't get rude. Just don't get into a heated discussion, because that particular heated discussion is going to be helpful for that moment for you to, prove your point. You may prove a point, but you may lose a person, or you may lose a client, or you may lose a order. So proving the point is not important. Making sure that the point is expressed correctly is important. Let's go ahead. Now, what happens after the meeting? After the meeting, you typically walk out of the room. In this case, it is not about getting noticed, but as a good mannerism, you can always align the chairs back. People would see you aligning it. It is about people seeing your mannerism. People would see you as a well-behaved person. It is not just to showcase. As a good habit for the next team which is coming in, it is always good to align that. Now, there's one thing, people, when the meeting is over, people generally, wrap it up and they move out of the room. Now, I certainly disagree to it, because if the more you are in that room, as I told you, there are some points which are discussed before the meeting. Similarly, there are some points which are discussed informally after the meeting. And that is a point where you get the actual taste of what is happening, what the discussion was all about. So don't rush to move out and go for your other work. Be a part of that. Leave the room late. Be a part of the after meeting discussion. After meeting discussion is going to drive the project or the discussion to a particular outcome. Now, if you're not there during that patch of around 5 to 10 minutes, the meeting is dispersed, people are still talking, people are still in the room, and they're discussing something, you may miss out on some important point which could be very vital for a discussion in the next group discussion. So make sure that you don't rush to leave the room. Now, if there's someone who is arranged that particular meeting, or there's someone from HR or someone from the team who has taken an initiative to organize that, just make sure that you take a permission from him, so that if anything is left out, or if anything is to be done, he would ideally guide you, and then you can make a move. So these are some of the pointers that we talked about before the meeting, where what is to be taken care of before you actually enter the room, what do we discuss during the room scenario, and what do we have to do after the room scenario. Now, I talked about body language while sitting, standing. Let's say I'm sitting and I'm sitting like this, and I'm making some strong movements of my body, or maybe I am bending like this, or some people have got things of doing, likes of doing this, or just moving the chair every now and then. So this is going to disturb the rhythm of that person who is talking. At the same time, he may feel that you are uncomfortable with what he's talking around. It may not be the scenario that you're uncomfortable with what he's talking, but your strong body language or your strong movements, or maybe you're too relaxed out there, that means you're not really bothered about what is being talked about. If you're taking notes, means you're bothered. Now, I don't mean that you take some fake notes around, but make sure that you are part of the meeting. Otherwise, you can excuse yourself from the meeting. If it is a group discussion where you may not contribute to the meeting and you would want to do some other work, you can excuse yourself by politely saying or dropping an email to the person who has invited you. I may not be able to contribute. I'm not the right person. That is still okay. But being in the meeting, if you are in that particular group discussion, make sure you contribute. If you don't contribute, it's going to be very bad on you. It's going to leave a negative impression with all the seniors that are in the room. If you contribute, that's going to be helpful for your career growth. Let's go one step ahead in this case. And then greet everyone. If it is a weekend, tell them happy weekend and things like that. Make sure that you exchange your business cards to be in touch. There will be scenarios that their clients who may have missed out giving you a business card or their communication coordinates. Just make sure that you collect them, because after that particular point, after that group discussion, may it be a college level interview, or it could be IIT interview, or it could be a team meeting in terms of a client representative coming in. If you don't exchange cards, you won't be later communicating with them, hey, please send me your card and so on. After that, after you've greeted them, make sure that you join them on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is a professional website. Don't send them Facebook requests. Join them on LinkedIn, because they would be more than happy to accept it. And that's why you build your network. A group discussion, whether with your clients or colleagues or anywhere at a social event also, make sure that you exchange the cards after the discussion, connect them on LinkedIn so that you are networked with them. So networking will play a very important role at a later stage. Now, the second topic which was given to me was telephonic round. Now, telephonic rounds must have been obsolete by now, is what I had felt, but there are certain professions where calling is most important thing, is where it is required and which is important. Now, when you're talking about somebody as an executive assistant to someone, and that particular person is to be gauged on how her telephonic skills are. Now, telephonic skills are different than any kind of skills, because it is only the audio that is being passed around. You need to be very clear about what you're communicating, imagining that the person is not able to see you, is not able to see your hand movements, nothing. Is just going to be hearing through one sense, which is your ear. So you need to be very crisp, very clear, and very to the point. I will go through things which are talking about telephonic discussion or telephonic round of interview. Let's go to step one. Make sure that whenever there's a meeting or there's a telephonic round which is scheduled, you are in a good coverage area. It is many a time seen that you are traveling, you know that there's a call at around 7 o'clock. You said, okay, I'll take the call in the car, or I'll take the call little early stage. Plan at least 10 minutes in advance. Okay, I am at this place. Can I be stationed over here for the next 10 minutes and take the call? Because it is a call either for your interview round or it could be some important call. So make sure that wherever you are in network or you are in a good coverage area. Keep an alternate number ready. There is a likely possibility that your network may go down. It could be the best of the network in your country, but it may go down. So try to see that you have an alternate SIM card, alternate phone on some other network which you can rely on. So that's one important thing. You keep an alternate number, either of yourself or your friend or someone who is traveling with you or some of your family member. But make sure that you keep it handy. Next, we are talking about a clear communication, as I told you, because it is only your audio which is going to be seen. There are a good number of classes which are available, which are going to talk about how you pronounce things, about how you convey things over phone. Specifically, if you're talking with a client or an interviewer who is not from your country, your accent is going to be either slow or fast for him. So you speed it up based on his accent, and that's going to help you out. Because if you're too fast or too slow, that's going to be creating certain discomfort. As you, it is difficult for you to understand him, it is equally difficult for him to understand you. This is when I'm talking about a regional person calling you, or someone from, let's say, Germany, UK, US calling you, which is slightly different. It may be slightly difficult for you to also understand. So imagine when you're talking and when you're communicating, you need to slow down your pace and you need to talk very, very, very clearly, because it is only the audio that is getting transferred and nothing else. Now, if you're in an interview, you need to speak the truth. Speaking more or speaking something extra is not going to help you. Speaking the truth, whatever you know in that particular topic, is going to help you, because after that telephonic round, you sooner or later may be joining that company, and that is the point where it could create a conflict. So make sure that you speak the truth. Even if you have less knowledge about something, be open about it. Knowledge can be gained before or during that company's role, but don't say something extra which is going to be difficult for you to convince at a later stage. As I previously communicated, speed of word is very important. If I kind of say that if I'm talking very fast, then it's going to be very difficult for people to understand. Now you need to speed up your tone in such a way that you match it. It is not, because at least in this case you can see my lip movement, but in other cases when you're only hearing me, and if you're hearing me to talk in a very high speed scenario, it is going to be very difficult. Add to it the network coverage, add to it the bad or poor network. Now, when somebody is actually talking to you and asking you a question, you generally hurry, rather you listen the question to answer. What I mean to say over here is you try to listen the question, understand the question fully before you start answering it. It is okay to take a pause. You can take a pause while you have listened to a question, you're thinking about it, and you're replying to it. It is not that the moment the question ends, your answer should start. Take time. If you have any doubts in that question, feel free to ask, have I perceived it correctly? Have I understood the question correctly? And once you've understood the question correctly, then only go for it. Because he must be trying to ask you something else and you are trying to communicate something else. So if you have not understood the question, or if you mistimed the question, it will be very difficult for you to entirely realign yourself to a different question which was perceived by the interviewer. Now, when you reply, let's say it's a 20 minutes interview round, a telephonic interview, do not reply at a stretch. If they ask you something, okay, what are your skill sets? Do not stretch it around. Make sure that you are to the point, precise, brief. If you're asking about your extracurricular activities or sports, be precise and brief, because you want them to ask more and more number of questions to know you better. You should not end up spending around 2 to 3 minutes in one question. In that way, it's something like Kaun Banega Crorepati. So if you're going to be asked, he's going to ask you questions, he's going to ask you multiple questions, you're going to ask, give multiple answers, it's going to be easy. So more questions is going to help him gauge you better. So spend precise time, not too small, not too long, but give a precise answer to whatever question is asked. Now, one important thing, let's say if you are on call with someone, and when you're on call with someone, you are making sure that your call waiting is not off. It's going to be bothering you as well as the person who's calling you if your call waiting is on condition. Now, what I mean by that is, if you turn it on, it's going to be on waiting. You turn off your call waiting completely. Best thing is if you can access a landline, great. Otherwise, it is generally advisable that you turn off your call waiting. There's a facility in everybody's phone that you can turn off the call waiting function. The calls would not wait for you. It will be a missed call for you that you can attend at a later point. But during this call, it's going to be disturbing you because something is ringing out there. You are trying to answer something, and it's going to be equally disturbing for both the parties. If you are attending a call from home, if you're attending a call from your office or someplace, just make sure that the people whom you know are not disturbing you. They're well informed at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. You are in this meeting, you are attending a call, you are attending an interview, you are giving an interview, and do not disturb. You don't want anyone to keep, come inside the room, shout around, or create nuisance out there. It's going to be adding to your impression. No doubt only audio is getting transferred, but even if audio is getting transferred, you need to make sure that it's a silent room, it's a where there's no disturbance. Make sure that there's no traffic out there. Even if you're sitting in a car, the windows turned off and you're audible. So your voice quality is going to matter the most in this entire thing. You need to keep a paper handy in this case also. Possibly a paper and your resume if you're giving an interview. Sure, you can make the notes and points as you're talking, because they're not going to see you. Imagine that you're not seeing me at all. I can make all the notes, I can do all the things out here, and I can answer it very well. Audio thing is always great. You can also log into your PC, pull out data from Google and communicate. But make sure that you at least have pen and paper, just in case he tells you, drop me an email, call me on so and so number, or he gives you certain instructions for maybe attending an in-person interview with an address. Now you do not want to tell him, please text me, please WhatsApp me. Instead of that, just have a pen and paper, make a note of it, and then you can take it ahead. As I said to you that you can keep your resume handy and then you can take it ahead. Make key points notes. Now, as only audio is getting communicated, you need to have a high pitch, you need to have a high energy level. You cannot just say hello. So you need not be dull. Your dullness is going to be only showcased with the tone of your voice, and which is going to be very important. So if your tone of your voice is energetic, that person is going to have some positive vibes. If your tone is low, he may feel that you are a low kind of person, you are not that energetic, or how would you gel in with the team if you have a low mindset. So your audio is going to be the only communicator. Make sure that it is highly pitched, it is in good positive tone, so that it is generating that positive vibe for the person who is taking the interview. If you're giving an interview, believe me, you need to research the company. Now, he may not ask you a question about the company, but if you have researched it well, you can coin and term your answers accordingly. Research about the company who's taking your interview, know the topic, know the product line, so that you can add it to your communication. If you have not researched about it, open the Google Sheet, open your website, keep it open, and make sure that whatever is being asked is known to you. You need to know their company strength, the names of the promoters. So these are some of the key things. If you are aware of, it is going to help you. Advisable and not advisable both. If you know that this person is going to take your interview, visit his LinkedIn page twice or thrice in last week. So he gets to visit your LinkedIn page also. He's going to see who's viewed me. So he's going to visit you. Not a very a professional tip out here, but it helps. It's not about stalking someone, but if you visit him, you understand what he's from, what background he has. It gives you a better understanding of his personality when you're answering or when you're reasoning out with him. That's what it helps. Ask questions, as I already said to you. Let's go to the next topic and the last segment of today's session, which is video resumes. Now, there were a lot of questions which were asked after the first resume building topic, and I was told that if you can add resume building or other video resume building at home by self, how would a person do it? So I've got only 4 odd pointers over here which will guide you to make a proper video resume. Video resume, as you know, or if you have attended the first part, you would know how the resume started, how things went on from there, and why video resume, because it helps you communicate via audio-visual format to the prospective employer. Now, what is required while you create a video resume? Now, while you're shooting the video resume, do not shoot it in a portrait mode. Can you just, if you see on the screen, you can see that you're not portraying it in a portrait mode, you're putting it in a landscape mode. because when you're viewing it on a computer, it becomes easy for a person to see it in a wide format. So make sure that if you're making a video resume, you never do it in a portrait mode, you do it in a landscape. That's one thing that you need to take care of. Second, if you see, you need to have a nice background. It could be a background which is plain, it could be a wall. Just make sure that it is contrast to what you're wearing. If it is aligned to what you're wearing, it becomes very difficult to stand out. If you see on the left hand side of the screen, you would be able to see that there are people who are having a certain plain background. A gray background generally fits into all scenarios. If you have a photo stand kind of scenario, great. Otherwise, make sure that you have a great but plain background behind you. No checkered marks, no designs, just a plain background so the highlight comes on you. Then we go on to the next part of it where we are talking about audible, rather the audio part of it. When you're communicating something, there is a collar mic which is attached to you so that you can, whatever you're speaking is communicated well. There's no lag. There is no lag of communication in terms of you're talking something but your tone is very low because the camera is kept far, or there is distortion from other areas. So there are collar mics which are available which make sure that only a certain diameter is what it is covering the audio from. So make sure that you use that collar mic or keep the camera a little close to you in a silent environment, because if you're recording something and there is some noise, you're going to restart. Restarting is going to be difficult. Advantage with video resume is that you can always restart, you can always retake. That's the major advantage of having a video resume and a video interview. In a video interview, it's just across the table. You are talking and he's coming. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. In case of video resumes, you can correct a mistake by talking it once again. There's a collar mic that I've shown in the slide. Fourth thing which I've shown in the slide is do not wear bright colors. If you're wearing bright colors, it's going to be very difficult for a person to actually focus. And sometimes when you're putting on the lights as well, the light's going to be reflecting on your bright clothes. So make sure that you're wearing subtle colors, you're communicating well. All the photos that I've shown on the left hand side of the slide are some sample images of people doing a one-to-one kind of video resume. Now these video resumes which I've showcased do not contain your project data, do not contain related videos. That needs a certain amount of editing. It is a normal editor. Nowadays people could do it in Canva or any other scenarios. You just have to compile your videos, align it in a nice way. Make sure that these videos do not run above 1 minute or 1.5 minute max, because that's the threshold where a person starts getting bored about things. So make sure that it is having that flow, plus and minus into that particular video, and you express everything. So what is to be covered? You need to cover your name, you need to cover your qualification. Now these are basic things that you have to cover. If you can cover something extra in terms of audio visual formats, great. So you need to cover your name, your educational qualification, your key skill sets, your current experience. Now experience, I do not mean your designation. By experience, I mean what role do you play in that particular organization or that particular company. So that is one part. Your achievements are to be mentioned. If you are having a sports background, if you are having any extracurricular background, do mention it. It is always good to align with people. So these 4 or 5 parameters for a 1.5 minute video is what you can align. If you want to align and add certain more number of project videos, that also can be added. But remember, if you're showcasing your company's project, you need to take a prior written permission, because it is your company's project that you have worked on. You should not land up in a problem that you have added something to your video and which your company is taking objection at a later point and put you into a soup scenario. So make sure that if you're showcasing something, if you're a graphic designer, if you're showcasing something done for a client, make sure that you mention the client's name, take a prior approval. If you're an industrial designer, if you design something, that does not mean that particular product belongs to you. That product belongs to the client. And in this case, you're just being a part of that project. So make sure that you represented that. 1.5 minutes video is sufficient enough to gauge your personality, to get what your skill sets are. More than this, as I told you, that we can always connect on LinkedIn. You can feel free to type Amol Chaphekar, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to connect and take it forward. Thanks once again. It was a pleasure talking.